Hey guys, welcome back to the Lion Marketer podcast on a very, very early Wednesday morning. The reason being, I'm interviewing Mr. Chris Gross, who's about to go overseas early next week, so has to smash out all his shit over the next day or so, basically. So This is all the time we've had. If we're half asleep, it's because we are half asleep. So
We'll wake up soon enough.
yeah, we've got a special guest, Indigo.
This is
Can you
Indigo.
see?
Yeah, this is Indy. Hi, say hi.
Hello.
Very gutted that B&T left her out of the dog issue.
Really?
As you can see, she's cute enough. She should have won it.
Yeah, Chris has been a good friend of mine for a long time, and I guess I admire him because he is, for his age, he has a lot of experience and is incredibly knowledgeable and well respected in the industry. So
Pinch of salt. Yep.
that's what we're going to roll with. Chris, go for it. Who are you? How'd you end up here? What's the story, bro?
So I'm at the moment I'm head of social media, CRM, and digital marketing at Fox Sports. Prior to that, to wind you all the way back, finished up uni, did a grad program with the AFA at a digital advertising agency called One Digital.
What'd you do at uni?
I did arts. I came out of school not really knowing what I wanted to get into. So I did arts, and it was awesome fun. And actually, randomly, the collection of subjects I did, like sociology, gender studies, a bit of economics, even some HR stuff, is probably I've used quite a lot and leaned on. So it was interesting. It was good fun though, and
Block your face.
so went out to an advertising agency, moved around in the 9 months from everything from project management to search to media to creative to business development, account management, yada yada yada.
Within the first agency you're at?
Within the first agency in that first 9 months. And so that was cool. I got a kind of overview of how everything worked and a good understanding.
Mm-hmm.
They offered me a role there, this kind of unique business dev role, which was around kind of pushing our existing clients and helping with pitches, working specifically in the newer stuff then, like this is, 2007, around social and mobile.
So that was just as all that shit was starting to kick off?
Yeah, definitely. Like I remember doing trying to do the first stuff with, I think it was like Listerine or Barocca or something on Facebook. It was fun. And prior to that, it was like we were talking like MySpace and YouTube.
Don't forget Bebo, bro.
Oh mate, the list is potentially endless. Anyway, so I did a role there. I then was working there for a bit, did some cool work with some incredibly smart people that I learnt from and have largely stayed in touch with, who are out dominating the world now. And then I went to Vodafone. Someone picked me up who I'd been working with there, said, hey, do you want to come over and do this thing called mobile advertising for a bit? I liked mobile, so I went and did that for a bit, and that was really interesting. But after probably about 9 months, I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. And I was kind of craving to get back into social. Around that time, Vodafone and Three were about to merge. I met the new digital GM, a guy called Ben Kimber. We talked about social. He hired me as the first social person at Vodafone.
At Vodafone?
At Vodafone, yeah.
And what year was that?
I probably started in my social role there in like 2009.
All right,
I think.
so that was when social as a viable marketing channel was starting to get realised and get
Hence for the first time they were willing to put someone whose remit it was at 100% focus, whereas previously, it was aspects of other people's roles.
Yep.
And you can tell that very easily when you look at anyone's footprint, even now, when it is, it's an aspect of someone's role, but it's not their full role. So I got some stuff in line there. We started to do some cool campaigns, built out our strategy and our approach, won some nice awards, and Then the crisis management of Vodafone hit at the end of 2010. I ended up playing the kind of central digital and social lead role for that piece, given that it was all kind of breaking within social. The team grew rapidly throughout that period.
And you were the leader and architect of that whole team and the build of that team, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, I mean, I was number one in, and I got some pretty strong thoughts in the space. So I guess I was an architect point from processes. You know, I see these things all way up process, technology, and people with content at the heart.
Yep.
So I was the architect across that piece, and was lucky to also have a kind of creative solutions architect technologist called Eric Jacobson that I became good mates with, that could also help when we started to talk, you know, some seriously deep tech and breaking down some of the, you know, the firewall issues and things like that you're going to get in a big business.
So from the standpoint of, say, some of the people listening or watching,
Yep.
Who want to maybe do or end up in a similar role to what you had at Vodafone,
Yep.
you need to be multidisciplined, yes? You need to be able to do multiple things, which is what you could do. You could do creative, strategy, bit of tech.
Yes.
You could manage people, both online and offline.
Yeah.
And that, in my mind, is a really, really unique skill set.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to learn that, or wanted to have that role, what would be your advice to someone aspiring to get to that place?
Yeah, I get asked that a bit by kind of people every now and then. The thing that I say to someone, let's say if they're at a university position or just coming out, would be, there are brands out there that need help. It doesn't matter how big or small they are, but they don't have someone doing this. And it might be a charity, so shit, you should do it because it's just a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Be proactive. Go to those people and say, hey, I want to help you with this thing. You know, I've got some ideas. It's not going to cost you anything. You know, can I work on behalf of your brand a few days a week and start to solve this thing out? You know, if you're then able to show return within a few months, you know, they might consider hiring you full time. Regardless, you've actually been proactive and shown that you care about the space.
This is a running thing that we've had over the past couple of podcasts with people trying to get jobs and grads and stuff.
Yeah.
Don't go down the fucking route of sending your CV via email to the HR manager, because it's going to get you nowhere. Walk in the door with a portfolio, doesn't matter how big it is, that focuses on your strengths and what you're good at. And you're more than likely to either get an internship, which will pay fuck all or pay something, which will result in a job, right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the best way to do it.
Or like I said, like, you know, you could go to a charity and start helping those people out. There's no reason that you can't kind of be doing that stuff. The other difference is there's a big difference in between working on a brand and working on your own brand.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool, you can show that, you know, you can create a self brand. But that's a very different piece than creating a brand within social and digital space. So
sweet. So sorry for sidetracking you.
No, you're right.
So
I was at Voda. I did some work there. The team grew rapidly to the point where I left. There was about 35. I followed again that my GM there had gone to Fox Sports. After a while, we had a discussion, and he kind of convinced me, didn't need a lot of convincing, to head over to Fox Sports, take on social CRM and digital marketing, and so picked that up in late August 2012.
Okay.
And had been plowing away at that since. That was a very different piece, because again, no one had been working on that stuff full time. That was represented in the channels and the purpose of them, or the lack of. It was represented in the content, process and technology didn't exist. So that's been a piece over the last 20 odd months around getting that all into space and into the right space.
This is the core question for me for you, and this is what gives me the most respect that I have for you, is your sort of unique ability to walk into massive businesses that don't have a social structure or process in place that deals with social media, digital media, efficiently and effectively.
Yep.
And you're able to pull together a team, develop the processes and frameworks necessary to make those processes more efficient.
Yeah.
In doing that,
so there's a question there, how do I do that?
I've got 4 different questions around that lined up, but you just go for it. How do you do that?
Social is looked at from a business's standpoint as this loose thing. Like, it's like, oh, we're going to do some stuff, we're going to get some likes. And it's like, what the fuck does a like do? And it's like, well, isolated, not a lot. Like, let's be honest. Do you know what I mean? There's a flow through, I call those facilitating KPIs that can affect bigger KPIs. But a lot of the time people start on that micro shit that doesn't matter. And you need to be looking at bigger pieces. The other point is, if that is loose, you also need to be showing that there is clear strategy and a framework to the strategy that sits around that from every process, from technology, people side of it and the content side of it, and being holistic in that. There is too many weak strategies that I see out there, which is more around just throwing some ideas against a wall and seeing what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't actually a core business strategy behind it. It's not aligned to a digital strategy. It's not aligned to the business's strategy. I kind of come in, understand where the business is at, and then kind of work to align those things.
Yeah.
I think that helps, and then it's about showing scalable success, and hopefully, being able to then business case to grow both, your platforms of what you're doing and the tech that's required to power those, as well as the people side of things.
All right, cool. So on the people side of things, you have gone into 2 big businesses and built from the ground up teams focused on social and digital. What in your mind is the perfect social team? What are the roles involved? And why are they so key? Like, what makes for the perfect social/digital media team within a large organization like Fox or Vodafone?
I think, look, that's a hard question, and obviously the structure of it depends on what the business type is. If you're heavy within having a customer care side of things, like Vodafone was, or any of the major customer service brands, which are a lot of them, that's going to be a different structure to something like Fox Sports. Regardless, there are some common themes to it. Before you get to what those common themes are, you need to decide if you're trying to be a social business or a social brand.
What's the difference?
So social brand is really where you are talking about using social media as another marketing channel. You're siloing your people that work within social under some marketing or comms role. They are really working on a campaign-to-campaign basis, just building things like Facebook tabs and trying to create a fucking hashtag campaign.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good and well. It can move the needle, but it's moving the needle on reach and engagement. It's not really moving the needle. You do not actually create any organizational change to your products or services because of it. In that case, you're really just skimming the surface of what it can do. Exactly right. You're ticking a box. It's really tick box mentality, right? Don't get me wrong. You can be very good at that stuff. There are some FMCG brands, I imagine. It's hard to tell always whether they do it or not, which bucket they sit in. That, they get great results with it because they got, kick-ass campaign to campaign content, and that's fine. A social business is really where you're trying to become a transparent business. Using social as a vehicle to change the way that the business operates. By that, you are connecting relevant consumers to the relevant people within that business who can affect change over that product and service. So instead of customers who are necessarily talking, it doesn't need to be direct or indirect. It can be direct or it can be indirectly. You've got customers talking about a product or service. You've got to make sure that is looping back to the people who can affect change in it, as opposed to some community handler that's getting, a bunch of money but not a lot in the scheme of things, and probably an intern to write lots of, emoticons and exclamation marks, and really not actually either A, help the person, or B, be able to actually evolve that product.
Sweet. So what we're talking about here is effectively building the right communication channels, right? You want to be able to create a system or a platform or a process where, like you just said, you're able to link up relevant consumers with the relevant people within the business.
Yeah.
And have those guys have a conversation with one another and
Or-
have the consumer come out of it at the end with either an answer to the question that they had or a far deeper understanding of whatever their question was.
Totally. And so in that way, then it's a proper value exchange in between the brand and the consumer. You do not need to be connecting everyone in it, because like I can see some people be like, oh shit, we don't want everyone on the business who's on social media. They'll just fart ass around and say the wrong things. And it's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's constraints that you can put into that place. The example I'd use would be, there are other ways you can do it, things around internal swarming. So that would be the notion that you then have the ability for someone who is customer facing to then have immediate access to, all the people that actually can solve or can help or can evolve a product. And those are models that, have been around for a while. If you look at Best Buy over in the States with 12 Force, that's internal swarming, but then it actually becomes external facing. There's some really interesting businesses that are doing it. That's some stuff that we were looking at within Vodafone. How we were trying to do that at Vodafone is things like all of the stuff around network, which was obviously considerable, is then going into a report on a regular basis, like we're talking at least weekly, that is feeding through into the network team. So they got like, from a geo perspective, these areas we're getting huge volumes of complaints about.
Yeah.
The data that they have might not match up to it, or might match up to it, or there might be a lag in that data. But the things that they're seeing from our data, they're going, we got to go look at that.
Cool.
And so that's starting to connect it. We don't necessarily have their technicians that are talking directly to customers, but they're acting upon it. Exactly right.
So you're taking the data that you're gaining from social, or the insights you're gaining from social at Vodafone at least.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine throughout most smart, sort of bigger businesses, consumer-facing businesses, they'll take the consumer insights that they can get from social channels.
Yeah.
And then feed those insights back into the business to the relevant people. The people who they feed it back into, technicians, don't need to be on social.
Totally.
There's no need for them to be there.
Yeah.
But they do need to be told what's happening. And
You got to be closing off that loop so there's actually action from it. And that's just my bugbear. No, we don't have bug beds. That I've got that I got with brands where it's just like, clearly that's not happening.
Yeah.
And I can say that from my experience as a customer, where I'm just like, this clearly isn't going. I'm still having the same problems. There's obviously no loop that actually goes back. That's where it really kind of irritates you as a consumer. And it's clear that in that case that it's just, hang on, this is just where social is sitting in just the marketing or comms department, and it's not actually really affecting any change here for good, which it should be, because we got this beautiful thing that's giving us real-time feedback and data
and
that
insights
and all the rest of it way quicker than any of our other channels ever were, that we can now be connecting people to make business decisions.
Yeah. And you're right, it just fucks me off that not enough people do it.
Yeah.
So really, really simplistically, as a team setup and structure,
Yeah.
how does that work? You would be at the top of it, obviously.
Yeah.
Use Fox, for example.
Yeah. So Fox is,
or you can use Vodafone.
Fox or Voda. Look, there's different ways, because I think you evolve it based on where you are in the journey. You still have someone that is a social architect. The role of that is to work across the different business units to define their role within social and bring those all together so it's a single facing customer area.
Business units as in social or across the business?
Sorry, across the business. So, the difference in between marketing or comms, sales, ops, customer care, digital, technology, working across all of those things to kind of unite it so is that you have single, you've got a single program and then ultimately customer facing presence that you're able to push forward. Like, I see some big brands within it that I'll happy to name. Telstra have got within the Facebook side of things. They have Telstra 24/7 Care, and they got Telstra as a brand page.
Yeah.
From a customer
on
Facebook. From a customer perspective, I don't get that. From a business perspective, I can see that there might be reasons that they do it. There might be good reasons that they do those things. There also might be reasons that are illogical why they do those things, because it's just part of a big siloed business.
Yeah.
If I'm honest.
Yeah.
So those are.
So that person's role. What would you turn that role to?
That role is really about aligning the business and setting some of that top line strategy piece. So then you can be getting people who are able to execute across that around it. Because like come back to social, right? It's technology, process, people with content at the middle. Okay. So they're defining about how all of those things come in together, and then what the output is for each of the different business units for social. So, hey, guess what? We need to have on the care side of things, we need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And that's going to be done through a single system that we're also using across the other business, the rest of the business units. From a sales point of view, we need to be doing this. Marketing's role needs to be this. Technology, this is how we're doing it. It's really someone, I guess, that's quarterbacking the piece of it.
So they're the boss, basically.
They can be, they can be the boss, or they can just be someone that tells the boss what the strategy is.
Yeah. And what would, just for people listening, what's the general, I guess, generally accepted title for that person?
Oh, mate, the title's the titles. You can call yourself whatever you want. If you're in a bloody agency, you call yourself
people who want this job,
director, executive of whatever.
Yeah, okay,
bullshit.
cool. So you've got them at the top.
So that's probably your role, yeah.
At the top of the tree.
Yeah.
And then going down.
You've then probably, you've got a social media manager of sorts. I'm looking at the social media manager role increasingly being less about doing it all yourself and more about teaching people how to fish. It's the metaphor that we use. Don't catch fish for people the entire time. You've got to do it at the start, right? Because let me continue with this ridiculous metaphor. You've got to teach them, what the tackle is that you're using and, the weight of the line and all that stuff.
We're going deep in this
going deep in this metaphor. So, you got to show them how to do it, right? Then they pick it up and do it for themselves. That's the piece of how we're trying to get to being a business with it. At Vodafone, at Fox Sports, we got, I think it's 20 odd editorial people who are hammering away on content, have a deep level of understanding of what's going on in the sports and all of the connections, and they're the ones that sit there and update stuff, because I could never know a fraction of what they know across those levels of sports.
Yeah.
Let alone across 15 different sports. So it's about how do we teach those guys to do this stuff in a way that's pretty quick for them, gets the business outcome that we're trying to achieve. Yet they've got all the knowledge to do it. I can't hire a social media manager that's going to know all of that stuff. I can hire a social media manager that's good at giving them ideas and making them better at doing it and helping them along the path.
Cool. And then they, I'd imagine, manage or oversee community managers or people at the cold face.
Yeah, totally. They can oversee the people then at the cold face of it. So you're going to have that might be a customer care perspective. That might be your community handlers. I mean, it's important in this thing that people differentiate community.
Yep.
The true word of community is forums, right? That's a forum. Facebook and Twitter community, is herding cats. That's the honest to God thing of it. It's not an incredibly sticky community within there. So I wouldn't use the word community in it. I think it's misused within our industry.
So how would you describe platforms like Facebook and Twitter then?
That's why you end up managing your page, right? I mean, you're managing a presence within there. I think there's a certain amount, unless you are able to show return or a sticky conversation continuously with the same people. I just struggle to say that that's actually a community. Do you know what I mean? If put that to the physical world. Yep. If you had this transient place where occasionally a few people pop up and give you a thumbs up for your lolcat and then ask for a couple questions, you wouldn't call that a community.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Let alone the fact that they're a part of like probably what was it on average? I think 105 other things that they will like.
Yeah, at least.
Do you know? At least I don't know. I'd struggle to say that that's a community. Like it's a different word for it. I'm not necessarily going to say what that word is. It might be it might be slightly offensive, but it's not a true sense of a community. No. It's too early, mate.
I know. All right, cool. That makes sense. So, having said all that, whoop.
Sorry, it's my dog.
What's your in building out these teams?
Yeah.
What has been the biggest challenge that you've come across? And how have you overcome it?
Besides the barking dog, the biggest challenge. There's lots of challenges, and they're gonna be different.
There must be a central one that's always sort of fucked you off, or there's been one that's been really hard to solve, or a roadblock that's taken a while to get through.
Yeah. Look, you're gonna have people making decisions who are at different stages and understanding of it. Some
of social
and digital, and all largely social and digital, right? Some of them will come around and get the true value of it and be able to add a lot of and add a lot into it, right? And really help out and get it. Because their brain will get it, right? There are others that won't, right? But they'll recognize the importance of it.
Yeah.
And then there'll be others that just stand probably, and say, no, don't necessarily agree. That's increasingly a rarer and rarer person, right? The challenge is just quickly identifying, I think, where people are along that path and then moving them along that path.
Yeah.
People sit there, I hear, people complain, it's like, oh, how can the CMO and the CFO and the CEO get it? It's like, the problem isn't with them. Brands are not hiring people in these positions that are idiots. Everyone that I have met within that position is a smart fucking person, right? With incredibly good business acumen and all the rest of it. The problem is you probably aren't explaining it right, or you don't have the frameworks that sit behind it that shows that it's strategically sound or it's affecting a business outcome.
All the communication channels are fucked, like we were talking about earlier. You need to get them tighter.
Yeah, exactly right. So, I think that's a challenge because, that's always something you're going to encounter in its ongoing path. But I would say don't... that is the role of a social person to be able to solve those things. I think, the thing that pisses me probably off the most, actually a common one would also be that people like ring fence what social is. So they'll be like, hang on, no. You just worry about the Facebook stuff. And it's like, buddy boy, I've got something to tell you that it's a lot more than just like this Facebook stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to be hitting everything from internal collaboration to the website and redefining what interactivity is through to our products. And it's taking people along the journey of that. And that takes a while because for some people it's,
social is still really siloed.
Totally, yeah. And you're opening a bit Pandora's box and, they got to sit back and accept it and realize that the world's changed and get on board or get off,
whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
Would you agree in that sense that social as a medium or a comms channel, instead of being a vertical, like this is the way I look at it, and term it with clients and things like that, instead of it being a vertical, it's more of a parallel. Like it runs across a lot of different verticals.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people trip up and have an issue understanding how social fits in.
Yeah.
With their with their business basically.
Yeah, I mean
it touches
totally. You got business.
Everything.
You got business verticals. How we draw this stuff from a strategy perspective. You got business verticals, right? Or business units, or however you describe it. Social is a platform that works across those. Hence, the role of that social architect that I was talking about earlier is to define how that works across all of them. But if I drew it, it would be you got your verticals or your, I'm not going to call them silos, but they're verticals, and then there's a layer over the top which would be social. There's other layers that are over the top too.
Yeah.
CRM is over the top. You hope your processes are over the top. You know, you hope your content's over the top. There's a lot of things that are that need to sit there, of which social is one. But the common theme that I think I just said in the other ones is that those are all relevant to social. So, that's just the challenge of how you look at it.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. When you do come up with those, when you start hitting those brick walls, with either senior management or it could be whomever within the business, what are your techniques for like overcoming resistance internally to a social idea that is going to work, but is just not getting the buy-in from the people you want to get the buy-in from?
Yeah, I think my technique is probably just to do more work. Like, then
prove that it's going to
well,
work.
yeah, or I'm not explaining it right. Do you know what I mean? I think a trap we fall into is that we speak our own language.
Yep.
And I fall into it all the time.
Okay.
And we got to be conscious that we got to be speaking to the language and understanding of the decision makers and all the rest of it. Don't get me wrong, it's becoming easier and easier because within head of roles. And working with great directors who get this stuff, and trust me, we kind of just go and do some things. But I think it comes back that you need to be re-explaining yourself, and that includes like business case the thing. Like, show me what the ROI is. How is this saving me money, or how is this making me money, or alternately both? And don't put bloody earned media into the thing of either making or saving. It's technically it would be saving money, because that's just bullshit stats. Like, you can't feasibly sit there with a CFO of an organization and just be like, so we got some earned media, and it's just like,
he doesn't know.
It saved you millions of dollars for that, and it's just like, nah, so I'm not buying it.
It's sort of like, in order to deal with the people higher up, you've got to sort of do two things. You've got to get across your point and your case, but in a way that they'll understand.
Totally.
You've got to do it in a way that's speaking their language.
Totally. And that is on you. Like, I just think we got to stop copying out and just like saying like, oh, I've just got a CEO or CFO or whatever that doesn't get it. It's like, no. You don't get it enough to explain it well.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Spend more time in understanding this stuff, because they're bright people.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. It's also just thinking about the angles of how you speak to it and rationalize it. A big point for us is about how we build up, regardless of where I've been, is how do we build up our own social channels, right? There's 3 different buckets that you put channels into. You manage social environments. So those are like Facebook's, Twitter. You're on someone else's playground playing by their rules, right? They're big playgrounds, right? They're huge. Important that you were in there, right?
Yeah.
But likewise, you've got your own social channels. These are your blogs and forums and a bunch of other things that you can actually own the back end of, and they're critical because that's that's your area. You can do what you want within there. That's where I think you can build kind of truly sticky communities where people come back. And my experience done that across Vodafone and Fox Sports. That stuff works. That moves the needle. And then you've got your owned and managed digital environments. That's like your website and stuff, right?
Okay.
From a standpoint of how do we also say, hey, let's invest in our own social media pieces, which can be a challenge because some of those investments can add up. You look at it in future years. Sorry, there's been a history of those managed social environments, your Facebooks and the like, that have changed their model and have continued to cut reach and try and monetize based off, getting brands to pay for the reach that they once had.
Yeah.
Right? Now, who knows what's going to go into the future? And that, I don't think they're going to sit there and suddenly just say, everyone's got to pay us $100,000.
Just on that, what is your opinion on why Facebook, for example, has decreased reach and is now sort of asking asking advertisers and brands to pay to reach more people.
They're a business, dude. Like, they've gone through an IPO. They got shareholders. They're trying to validate the share price, and that needs to continually grow. And the market and their shareholders will ask them to continually grow that.
Yeah.
And they will need to figure out new and interesting ways to make, revenue from people. The other thing is that you're also from their factor, and that's fine. I'm good with that. Like, that's how business works.
Thank God you're good with that. 'Cause I'm sick to death of fucking people saying, like, we've had a free ride with Facebook.
Oh, totally.
For the last 4 years, we've had one of the most powerful consumer platforms ever built in history.
Well, yeah, I would say, but
Free,
yeah.
Free to us as marketers to talk to consumers who actively have stated that they like our brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been afforded this opportunity to talk to them for free, basically.
Yeah, totally.
And now Facebook's like, all right, sweet, you've had your heyday.
Yeah.
Now we are going to start making money off it. But I was also wanting to touch on a sort of theory. It's just what I think on Facebook, and I think.
Sorry, before you finish on that theory, I just want to finish the point of managed social channels.
Yeah, go for it.
If they went and changed that thing, right, and they continue to do it, which I don't think they will, they'll reach their point. Regardless, it would not be it wouldn't be acceptable from my point of view to then say, if you're in a role controlling a social brand, to then go, oh shit, didn't see it happening, sorry, we just lost 3/4 of our reach and now we've got to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. You should have fractured your footprint of that brand. You should have built stuff that you owned.
Yeah.
And that's a no-brainer to me. And that's also a way that we explain that to senior execs, and they get that.
Yeah.
They start to get that it's, hang on, this is actually a mitigation piece, let alone we have a lot of opportunity to actually, monetize it if we own it, and we've actually got people, we've got a lot of consumers coming through, like we do when we're in media and sport, right?
Yeah, so use your Facebooks and Twitter of the worlds, but be very, very careful to also build out your own media channels.
Totally.
That no one can take away from
Yeah,
you.
and
that you own completely and can do anything with.
Yeah. And let me be clear on that. When I say your own stuff, it's not about creating face space and recreating the wheel of a social network. No. It's totally. It's think about what are the value exchange and different interactions and way that people are engaging with one another, and what are some of those that don't exist within Facebook and Twitter that is logical to create your own social platform that can facilitate doing that.
Yeah. Cool. What is your opinion on, because this is my thought, I'm happy and glad that Facebook is starting to reduce reach to a point, and we're getting encouraged to pay for the opportunity to reach consumers, because what it seems to be doing is the people that our updates are reaching, even though the volume is smaller, I feel that the people who are seeing the updates now are far more qualified consumers within our groups or pages. And they're more likely to engage more heavily than the thousands of other people who would have otherwise been contacted or seen the update in our newsfeed in the past. So end result being, our messaging, this is without paying for it first, is going to reach these people, but it's going to reach a more qualified audience first. And now if we want to reach a larger audience, we have to pay for it, which is fine.
Or you got to get your content right.
Yeah. You got to get your content right first up.
Yeah.
Right? And if you want to reach more of those qualified consumers, you have to pay for it, which I think is fine. It's a fucking media channel now.
Yeah, totally, it is. And the other thing is there's a million more brands on it. Compare it to where it was, 4 years ago.
Shit.
There weren't as many brands within that space. You've got your local chicken shop, and yoga studio on it. You've got every brand of every size on it. It's just not feasible that they do it in the old way of doing it. Yeah, exactly right. So they do need to change that stuff, and that's fine. They're evolving it, and you can rest assured that they will continue to evolve that stuff. And I think they'll largely continue to evolve it in the right way that needs to be done, because they've got a track record of doing it.
Yeah.
So I haven't got a problem with that. that being said, we are seeing within this stuff huge opportunities when you get your content right. You know, I feel like at Fox Sports, we've really started to get our content right on our Fox Sports Oz Facebook page. In the last 6 weeks, we've had 100,000. We went from 100,000 on the page to over 200,000 in 6 weeks. No media. We just got our shit right.
Yeah.
So our reach that we are seeing that without the paid, you know, we are in, you know, we're nearing an 8-figure reach number. So i.e. over 10 million, right? Because we're getting our stuff right. We never got near that unpaid.
Yeah.
Right? So if you get that stuff right, no, it is still an absolute gold mine, and you can do great things for it. You just got to get your content right.
Yeah.
And, you know, your content's going to speak in volumes for really what you're able to achieve.
Yeah. So content, as always, is king. So people have to spend the time to get, you know, the topics of content right, but also the way they write their content in a way to, yeah. I guess for you, watching what's going on your pages, I see how you guys are writing the content, and I see the words you're using, and they encourage interaction.
Yeah.
And they encourage people to engage with the update itself, but also drive them through to, you know, Fox Sports Online.
Yep.
Which is awesome. So just sort of around that area, are you able to talk about really quickly the processes you guys have internally to come up with the ideas for content, create the content, then get the content produced, then approved, then sent out into a social channel?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Totally. Well, rarely it's approved because we empower our people to work within a framework that they can do their things for. So unless that it is talking like contracts, it doesn't need to get approved, i.e., you know, dollars and all the rest of it to subscribe to whatever pass. We don't need to approve it with legal, and legal's happy with that.
Yep.
So that automatically means that it's a quick process. The first thing we do is what's the output of it? 3 outputs that we're after. We're after engagement piece, which is going to get measured by, you know, comments and likes largely. We're after shares. So how do we make just shareable content that's going to give us reach? And then we're after traffic driving, right? Which is clicks through to our website.
Yeah.
And so really those are the 3 things. We don't have to be exclusive in how we do those. There are different tactics to how you optimize towards those. But if we get things right, generally we can get like 2 of those.
Okay.
Right? So process piece of really how it works is we are kind of constantly, you know, we have an editorial team that sits on the cusp of breaking news. It's hilarious because, like, you know, over the last, God, how long has it been? Year or 2 years? People have been talking about real-time marketing, you know, off the back of the Oreo piece and all the rest of it. It's like, guess what? I got a real-time marketing team. It's called our editorial team. They are the brightest and know the most about sport, and are incredibly witty and all the rest of it, as generally editorial people are. So it's about just kind of connecting them up, empowering them, give them areas that they can operate within, and then feeding back based on the data that we analyze to say, hey, this stuff works. How we've gone and tried and done that is you can break content into different buckets, right? We kind of identified about 8 buckets that consist of about 95% of the stuff we're going to post about, right? In sport, that's really obvious. It's like results. Do you know what I mean? Injury updates, team updates. Do you know what I mean? You can go through and you can see them quite logically. Then there is different tactics then that you can do to optimize against that stuff. Being as quick as possible in a breaking news scenario is part of it. The other thing is
that's what I found about you guys being like that you do really, really well. You break shit before the Telegraph or someone like that.
Because, you know, guys are empowered to do it, and we're not sitting there, you know, waiting for approvals.
So the
we have a fluid approach to content.
So do the guys in the editorial team have the ability to go straight to the Facebook page and update, or do they have to run through the social team to do that? Like,
they have the ability to go in and post content, yes. Not necessarily in native Facebook, because there's some challenges that obviously you get around that stuff.
What do you mean by native Facebook?
So as in like through Facebook.com, you know, it's around kind of centralizing that stuff where possible through a tool that makes that easier for us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we use Spreadfast, which we found's kick-ass, and it's making things, really easy for us. So look, those guys are able to do those pieces. The other thing that we then map out is we need some regular content, right? I've always, preached to anyone who's willing to listen about this stuff that at the same time every week at roughly the same time, same day every week, roughly the same time, you need to be posting similar types of content. We started that off in Vodafone. It worked incredibly well, even with the most boring content like network updates. We now bring that through into Fox Sports, that you've got, player of the week's on Monday and people know it, so they go looking for it. Team of the rounds on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Vela of the week. At 5 p.m, I know I've got
incredibly structured.
Exactly. At 5, I know I've got the top 5 at 5. What were the 5 big stories at 5 p.m. that did the most traffic that day? So if I finish work and I haven't been able to look at any sport, I can be like, oh, hang on, I can just roll through this gallery, right? Here are the 5 headlines. Sweet, cool.
So that's an insight, right? That's an insight to how your content strategy works and
definitely.
Developed. You've seen that, the time sport lovers consume media the most is when they're going home from work. So let's give them a summary of what's happened during the day or the week or whatever at the appropriate time, and they're more likely to engage a lot more heavier than they would have if you sent that same update out at a different time, like 10 a.m. when you're in the middle.
Definitely. The other thing though, and that is, we don't respect best practice rules, right?
In what sense?
Best practice rules are written across these channels by I don't know who.
Best practice rules don't even fucking exist.
Exactly right. You've got some person who's waxing lyrical on this stuff who probably doesn't work in the space, or if they do, they work at some high level or at some fucking consulting thing or whatever else, right? I don't know where these people emerge from, or they're just rumors that are just made up. I don't know.
If I heard someone say the words best practice regarding social and strategy, I would turn off straight away.
Yeah, it simply doesn't exist. So your best practice is to throw best practice out the window. You've got ones that say, hang on, we should only be posting 3 times a week on Facebook, right?
You can have your own best practice.
Exactly
internally,
right. Exactly.
So
that's what I'm trying to get to. Totally. You need to figure out what that is for your brand and for the consumers that are connected to that stuff.
For sure.
We are ramping up consistently how much we post a day, right, across all our channels, and we are looking at that and seeing, is engagement rate going down? Are we losing people, right? Or clicks going down, or reach going down, or whatever? If not, we post more. Yeah. Right. So we are looking at, we probably post on average 20 times a day now on our Facebook Fox Sports Oz page, let alone across the rest of all the pages we've got. We've got 30 odd accounts.
Are they geo-targeted updates?
No. Some of them are, but most of them are to absolutely everyone. And we're seeing our stuff skyrocket. Courier Mail up in Queensland, part of the Masthead News network, they post like 4 times an hour, right? And they're doing great things.
Yeah. So that's changed in the space of 2 or 3 years, when if you posted more than 2 or 3 times a day, your reach would drop dramatically because Facebook's algorithm would look at you as spam.
Totally, but the Facebook algorithm is constantly changing.
Absolutely.
And we need to be constantly testing and prodding and figuring out what the best is for us, measuring and truly understanding the analytics for ourselves versus relying on like the latest blog, which is giving you someone else's version of best practice that isn't relevant to your brand or your consumers.
Yeah, awesome. What is your go-to, this is for like team leaders, I guess, or managers of teams. What's your number one sort of go-to tip for them, I guess, from a mindset point of view?
The bar. No. Not the pub. I think it's about, you can't be a micromanager. I think that goes without saying. I believe in giving people a long rope within your team, because the best work comes from people who are being proactive and who are stimulated to be proactive and come up with these great ideas, or look at something and say, hang on, this is not working, or we can do this better. as opposed to necessarily you just giving them a long shopping list of stuff that they need to do.
Yeah.
In that way, they need to be empowered to do things, right? And then they need to be held accountable to them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the times we take on too much stuff. So it's about clearing out and making sure you're clear on the priorities of what they're doing. A leader's role is to remove roadblocks and make your people more efficient.
Yeah.
And in that way, we serve them, not they serve us.
Brilliant.
Right? Their job isn't to make me look good, even though they do. Hopefully my role is to make their life easier so they can get on with it, because there's more of them than there is me. Thank God for that. I think they'd say the same.
Yeah, that's great. Really quickly on education, what is, in your opinion, how wide is the knowledge gap regarding social and how it works, operates, and is measured, etc., from the CMO level, all the way down to the community manager who's running at the coalface?
Yeah.
What's the knowledge gap there, and how do we close that, in your opinion?
I don't think it needs to be closed.
Cool.
I don't think they need to know the level of detail, right?
Yeah.
Like, take this out into a different business unit, right? Let's look at, like, you can name your business unit, right? Let's go from a technology standpoint, right? So you might have someone that builds hardware at Apple, right? And they sit there welding like chips together and shit, okay? Do you reckon the chief technology officer or whoever it reports into knows the finer detail of like silicon chips and the welding material? They don't need to.
No, I agree.
Right? They don't need to. Likewise, that the CMO doesn't need to fill their brain with all the micro stuff of what's going on. Because the other thing with that in social, right, is that micro stuff constantly changes.
Yeah.
So they need to be across is the top line piece of how it works, the role of it, what are the business outcomes that we're trying to achieve through it, how we're investing in it, and how, what success looks like so we can invest some more into it.
That's what I meant then.
Yeah.
So from a CMO point of view, how much or how deep is their knowledge within that area?
I think it's good. Again, then it is on the role of whoever is leading social
to
educate and make that picture really clear.
Yeah.
So like I said earlier, you don't get half bits. You get these incredibly bright people that sit there within these CMO roles, and they get it.
Yeah.
Right. You just need to arm them up with the right information, like the rest of the business groups arm them up.
Yeah.
People continue to invest in TVCs or whatever other channel that it might be from a marketing standpoint, because someone's sitting there and showing them that it's moving the needle on awareness and brand consideration, and it's getting them reach and all the rest of it. Well, we've got to make sure that we're doing the same way and treating it. We shouldn't be treated any differently because we are this cool, sneaker wearing generation of misfits.
Yeah.
We need to come at it with the same business acumen or more of any other channel.
Yeah.
Right. The other reason probably the TVC get is those guys do get taken out on better lunches. So I think you got to push them cash there.
All right, sweet. We're nearing the end, so a couple of real quick fire questions. Why? Where is it?
Why do you do social? Yep.
What is it that you love about your job?
Everything.
Why do
like
you
if people ask me, they're like, a few people ask me recently, they go like, no, but like, what do you really, like, what do you do? What is your day to day? And I'm like, my day to day is always different. And I like that. I actually view what I'm kind of doing mostly as problem solving.
Yeah.
I joke that I'm a professional problem solver and creator and cat herder. Because, that's a bit of what I do. I get to work with creative, intelligent people from content creation through to, structured and complex analytical minds of things like technology. And and everyone in between. And that's why I love it. The other thing is that it's constantly changing.
Yep.
So I am constantly evolving. I cringe when everyone's like, oh, you're an expert on it. So call me a smeg. I'll take that as a fucking insult. But
Smeg means
social media expert guru, or if anyone uses those kind of things, I cringe because this is built on technology that's constantly changing, and it's built on people that are constantly changing and are very tough to predict what people are and what they're doing and all the rest of it, right?
You can't be an expert on something that is a moving target and consistently changing.
Totally. On two different levels, like the people using it as well as the technology. That's two shifting things, so you can't be an expert. So, being able to be just always curious, challenged, thinking, evolving, that's what I love. That's
love
cool.
It. All right, cool.
And lolcats.
Of course, lolcats.
Nah, I'm not big into it. You can see I'm a dog fan with Indigo rolling around.
If you could do it again, is there anything you'd do differently?
No.
Good.
Don't think so. Maybe a few wardrobe choices, but that'd be about it. No, I wouldn't do anything differently. Everything's been good fun. It's been a ride.
Sick. All right. Favorite book? It doesn't have to be marketing based or focused. It's more something that's inspirational that you pick up every now and then, just to get a buzz out of. Could be a bio.
No, I mean, there's a few Brian Solis books that are probably floating around
Brian
here.
Solis
There's one there.
So like what the fuck? Or
there's one there that's predictably irrational.
Predictably irrational by Brian Solis?
No, that's not Brian Solis. This one here.
Just chuck it up in front of that.
Here we go. So you can see it's got a bit of wear and tear on there.
I'll put a link to that in the blog.
Airlie, I don't know how I pronounce his name. You reckon that's Airlie?
Yeah. Ariel.
Arieli? I should probably know that. That's cool. That's different too. That's like, but there's some more condensed stuff in there that you'll be like, oh whoa. You can probably see we're actually in my house. So there's books scattered around actually everywhere within this stuff. Other things I like reading is just different stuff. I like art,
like a variation.
Yeah, totally, and like different pieces. Like I've got the Pharrell. I got a Liechtenstein book here and Pharrell, and it's just like, this guy affects culture, and we're trying to affect culture, and there's just cool, interesting, different stuff in here.
Yeah.
And I think looking at different things and then trying to think how you can apply it is really interesting. One of my favorite books actually that I do go back to a lot is Chasing Cool. I'm pretty sure it's called Chasing Cool. It's got one of the sickest covers you'll ever see, defining what cool is. And there's actually some methodology to it, to that madness. That's a epically cool book. Is not the way I should define it. It's a great read.
Yeah, sick. Favorite industry hero? Industry being someone you look up to. It can be in the marketing and advertising industry, or someone that you, admire, basically.
Man, a lot of people. I think you got to be a fan of a lot of people. Do you know what I mean?
What would be one you reckon?
Oh man, that's hard.
We're going to turn into a pumpkin in about 3 minutes.
Alright, I think some of the stuff Brian Solis has done has been really interesting because there are frameworks. I like anyone that's trying to create frameworks and actually methodology around social.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I've got a swag of people that I've worked with that I look up to and I think are incredibly bright in their different areas. Some that I worked with when I was over at One Dig, some at Vodafone.
Yes. So like mentors.
Exactly right. And just anyone that's gonna challenge you and make you think about things differently and isn't shy to call bullshit.
Yeah, cool. What's your favourite sort of go-to news website for information around marketing and advertising?
I wouldn't say I've got specifically
Or are you just
one.
a Twitter fiend? Just go to your Twitter feed?
No, I mean, I kind of am all over the shop. You know, I'm largely on blogs and, you know.
Do you like Mashable, like those sorts of TechCrunch?
No, there are, yeah, like I'd be in those sites once or twice a week and having a look through. There's not one site that I read every day from that standpoint. There's a bunch of other stuff I read, more sporting stuff and lifestyle blogs that I'd be in every day.
Which are like maybe what?
Oh, like every day I'm in, like High Snobiety is like a blog. SNOBIET. He's
Okay.
like, but that's like a lifestyle one. I like that blog.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be in some Tumblrs. You know,
Just a bunch of different.
just a bunch of different stuff. I think you got to be widely read.
Yeah. Cool. And one.
Foobiz, that's cool. French, it's a French one, but they do. I found out there's like you can convert it to English, so that
Just
makes it
recently?
easy. Yeah. Oh no, I figured that out like 2 years ago. But for the first 6 months, it was like pulling hair. I was like, je m'appelle.
I've got to
shit.
speak French.
Merde.
Okay, so in one or two sentences, what would be your best piece of advice to a newbie coming into the industry or wanting to come into the industry of like digital media, social media?
Be proactive. It's not going to be handed to you. You got to work for it. Think about the big picture, and stay hungry because it's highly competitive now.
Cool. And lastly, what's your take on the Australian scene and where we're at globally?
I was just over in San Fran at a conference like a minute ago, like a week. I got back, I think, a week ago. We are
International travelers there.
international man of zero mystery. I don't think we're as far behind as we say that we are,
Yeah.
or we think that we are. There are just mega brands over there that are able to do things at a completely different level of scale to us, right? And that means from the amount of people that can work on it, to the amount of consumers that can receive it, to the budgets that they get to play with,
Yeah.
right? Like the Old Spice, if you look at the content style of thing, everything that they've done there, and Nike too, you know, and Red Bull, that stuff's incredible. Australian brands are going to struggle to play with that amount of dollars. What it means is I think that we've become more innovative as an industry because we need to make our buck stretch,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's a cool thing. But we're not as far behind as we say we are. You know, I think we just got to stop we got to move on above and beyond just thinking about things as being like a Facebook tab and driving some media there. Like, that's not necessarily the solution every time.
Yeah.
It's not that exciting. I
And
think
do you feel
there's-
that's symptomatic of the Australian
yeah,
industry?
I do. A lot of briefs, you know, responses that I see or you know, whatever else it is, and I'll be like, you know, it's like I've got a glass fortune ball or whatever it is, crystal ball, fortune balls, and it'll be like, oh, okay, let me guess, Facebook tag, a hashtag that gets used like 10 times, a generic comp that is put together that's going to attract comp trolls that don't want to engage with your brand, and that's proven.
And just want to win free shit.
Yeah, just want to win free shit, zero care about your brand, and then maybe some video piece that by the time brand and legal got all over it, it is so bad no one wants to watch it, and even with a seeding budget, you're still not getting over like 5,000 views.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's fucked.
and how much did that cost? And it's like, well, and it's like, and how much of that was production? And how much of that can you reuse, take the learnings for it and to shape it into something better?
Yeah.
And then it's like, that makes 0 sense.
Mr. Chris Gross, thank you so much for your time.
Chilled, bro. Pleasure.
Appreciate it. On the podcast, we end with a David Ogilvy quote because I love him and think he's the father of advertising. So for this one, we've got the consumer isn't a moron. She is your wife. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, without doubt.
Don't treat consumers as idiots. They're your family, they're your son, they're your daughter, your wife, your husband. I think if you look at marketing and creative that way, you're going to get a far stronger campaign message that's going to get a lot more cut through.
Word.
Done?
Done.
Sick. All right, guys, we'll see you very, very soon. Cheers.
Good quote.